It was March 4, 1918, the sea of the Bermuda Triangle rippling under a gray sky, the salty air heavy with the scent of water and rusted steel. The USS Cyclops, a U.S. Navy freighter carrying 309 souls, sailed in silence, until it vanished without an SOS, without wreckage, without a trace. Days later, fishermen reported blue lights dancing over the waves where the ship had been, and a sound, a low wail, rising from the sea, not the storms, as if something had claimed the Cyclops for itself. The Bermuda Triangle, a treacherous stretch of the Atlantic between Miami, Bermuda, and San Juan, churned the sea in March 1918, its dark waters reflecting a heavy sky, the salty air mixed with the smell of diesel fuel and damp seaweed. The USS Cyclops, a 540-foot Navy freighter, left Barbados bound for Baltimore, carrying 2,800 tons of manganese and 309 crew members, including sailors and officers. Built in 1910, the ship was a steel giant, but it already had a grim reputation. Its captain, George Worley, was eccentric, feared for his iron discipline and strange superstitions. On March 4th, after a final radio message reporting fair weather, the Cyclops disappeared. No SOS, no wreckage, no sign. Extensive searches covered thousands of square miles, but the sea gave back only silence. The Navy considered storms, overloading, or even mutiny. Worley was German-born, and World War I fueled paranoia about sabotage. But nothing explained the total absence of evidence. Puerto Rican fishermen, days later, told a different story. Blue lights, like living lanterns, flickered over the waves where the ship should have been, and a local sailor swore he heard a low wail from the horizon, felt more in the bones than the ears. A freighter spotted something floating weeks later, but on approach it was just loose wood, unmarked by the Cyclops. In island taverns, under the stifling heat and the smell of rum and salt, sailors shared their truths. Sitting on worn benches, they spoke of nights when the triangle glowed with strange lights, of whales heard on the sea that weren't human. "It wasn't a wave that took it," said Miguel, an old fisherman, his eyes fixed on his glass. "It was something that called it." Science pointed to currents or human error. They saw a secret, a ship that didn't just sink but was taken, echoing voices the Atlantic never released. Practical theories about the Cyclops, storm, sabotage, never silenced the whispers that echoed in island taverns where the smell of rum and salt mingled with the voices of those who feared the triangle. Under the creak of benches, men like Miguel told legends that made lanterns flicker. "It wasn't the sea that took it," he said, his eyes reflecting the horizon. "It was the reapers of the veil." According to myths older than colonial maps, the reapers were entities of the Bermuda Triangle, not ordinary spirits, but echoes of an abyss trapped between sky and sea. Their bodies were made of mist and blue light, their eyes glowed like dead lighthouses, and their voices were the wail rising from the waves, calling names in a tone that drowned the soul. The signs were there, hidden in the salt and silence. Miguel spoke of nights when he fished in the triangle and saw blue lights pulsing over the water, not stars, but something alive, smelling of ozone and rotten seaweed. Once he heard a sound, a low wail coming from the sea that made the air chill and the hairs on his neck stand up. Shadows moved in the fog, tall forms that looked like sailors but dissolved into foam when approached. He gunned the boat, but the wail followed, echoing in his mind like a call the Atlantic kept. "They don't sink," he said, his net steady in hand. "They take." The reapers of the veil, they said, came for those who crossed their domain, like the Cyclops on its doomed route. A Puerto Rican captain years later swore he sailed near the triangle on a moonless night and saw the sea glow with a sickly blue, hearing voices, not in English but in a tone that tangled the senses, coming from a place the waves hid. "They called them," he muttered, his hands shaking on the helm, "and those who hear go with them." The lost ship, they said, wasn't a wreck. It was a tribute, and the reapers were the voices that trapped what the triangle claimed since time immemorial. In 1928, a decade after the disappearance, the Bermuda Triangle still held the secrets of the USS Cyclops, its dark waters sliced by silent islands, the humid heat buzzing with distant insects. Ana Morales, a 30-year-old Puerto Rican oceanographer obsessed with the lost ship, saw in the triangle a mystery the reports couldn't close. With her came Luis, a local fisherman raised on Miguel's stories, and Carlos, an engineer who laughed at legends while hauling sonar equipment. They arrived on a muggy morning, the air smelling of wet salt and burned diesel, the sound of waves echoing in the fog. Ana wanted wreckage, Luis to avoid the reapers, Carlos just data. The first night they anchored over the approximate coordinates of the Cyclops' last signal, the sea calm under a gray sky. Ana set up lanterns, their glow cutting the darkness, while Carlos calibrated the sonar, beeps blinking against the damp. Luis's dive watch began spinning backward, its hands dancing silently. Currents, Carlos said, but Luis pointed to blue lights pulsing beneath the waves, rising like breaths on the surface. That night Ana left a recorder running on deck, and at dawn it captured a sound, a low wail coming from the sea, that made the air feel dense and salty, smelling of rotten ozone and ancient foam. On the second day, Ana insisted on diving where the sonar detected an anomaly. The air was heavy, clinging to the skin like a warning, and the water glowed with marks, twisted lines and eyes, etched like seals into the currents. Then the wail returned, louder, echoing from the depths like a chorus from another time. Carlos stumbled on deck, the sonar whirring wildly, as Luis pointed to shadows rising from the water, tall forms, made of mist and blue light, moving like sentinels that weren't human. "We gotta pull up," he whispered, gripping a harpoon, but Ana stayed, mesmerized as the chant grew, calling names. Ana, Luis, in tones that cut the soul. The sea shook, the waves pulsing as if alive, and blue lights erupted around them, the air growing thick, heavy with a pull downward. Carlos ran for the sonar, but a shadow reached him, foam-like fingers grabbing his arm, and he fell, screaming as the water seemed to open beneath the boat. The wail became a roar, the hull vibrating like a heart, and Luis shouted Ana's name as the shadows closed in, the chorus echoing through the triangle as the sea folded, dragging them toward a place that glowed and wailed beyond the waves. The Bermuda Triangle roared as if the sea itself rebelled, the dark waters trembling beneath Ana, Luis, and Carlos's boat, the salty, sticky air smelling of rotten ozone and burned seaweed. The wail of the reapers of the Vale exploded into a deafening chorus, ancient voices slicing through the fog and vibrating in their bones, as blue lights burst from the depths, glowing columns spinning around them, pulsing like starving hearts. The shadows, dozens of them, rose from the waves, tall figures of mist and blue light, their eyes gleaming like dead lighthouses in the dark. Carlos fell on deck, a shadow's fingers digging into his chest, a muffled scream as a thread of blue light escaped his mouth, sucked into the void roaring below. Then it emerged. From the sea's depths, a massive entity took shape, blue light coalescing into a colossal figure, a lord of the Vale or something. It once was, its body made of living currents and twisted mist, its arms long like spiraling tsunamis. Its face was a blur, but eyes scattered across its torso blinked in unison, and a deep voice echoed over the chorus. "You crossed. Now stay." Ana felt a tug on her soul, as if the sea were ripping her from herself, and saw faces in the shadows around, Worley, the Cyclops sailors, their eyes glowing with eternal terror echoing in her mind. Luis ran to her, shouting her name, but a wave of black foam swallowed him, the reapers pulling him down as he sank in silence. The waves parted, the sea collapsing into an abyss that exhaled a sickly blue glow, and the Lord advanced, its arms reaching for Ana. She dropped the recorder, the device falling on deck as it captured the roar, now a sound that made the boat tremble. "They take," she whispered, eyes wide, seeing the trapped form on the entity's surface, their eyes glowing with ancient hunger. A wave of black mist hit her, throwing her against the mast, and the abyss opened, cold and ravenous, as the reapers surrounded her, wailing, "Ana," in tones that froze the blood. The triangle pulsed violently, and the entity dissolved into swirling lights, pulling her into the depths where silence roared and the sea swallowed everything. Dawn crept over the Bermuda Triangle, a pale light cutting through the thick fog hanging over the waters. the silence of the waves broken only by the faint slap against debris. Ana, Luis, and Carlos's boat was deserted, extinguished lanterns rolling on deck, the air smelling of wet salt and cold diesel. Local fishermen, alerted by an unnatural stillness, approached the site cautiously, finding Ana's recorder among the wreckage, its tape hissing with a low wail. Ana, before cutting to a silence that raised the hairs on their necks. Her notebook, tossed near the helm, held a final scrawled line. They call. Luis was found at noon, drifting in a dinghy miles from the triangle, clothes torn and eyes glassy, his face pale as death. He didn't speak, only pointed at the sea, trembling, his hands marked by scratches that looked like living mist. Taken to a port in Barbados, he stayed mute for weeks until one night he whispered, "She saw. They took her." Ana and Carlos never reappeared. No bodies, no signs, just the empty boat and the intact sonar. Fishermen burned incense on the waves and prayed to appease the reapers. But the elders knew. The sea was awake, and what took the Cyclops wouldn't return to silence anytime soon. In the years that followed, sailors reported blue lights dancing over the triangle, brighter and restless, and a sound, a low wail rising from the waves like an echo the wind didn't carry. A young captain, too bold, swore he saw a figure in the fog near the Cyclops coordinates, tall and fluid, standing where Ana had been, its eyes glowing like dead lighthouses. The curse of the USS Cyclops became legend, but the Atlantic's silence was never the same. It wailed, and those who listened too long felt a chill, as if the reapers of the veil still hunted, waiting for more names to trap in the beyond the sea sealed. The curse of the USS Cyclops drowned you in a mystery of the waves, but the next enigma whispers on land. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. The Hinterkaifeck enigma is coming, bringing a silent farm and shadows blood can't explain.